Entrepreneurs have big ideas and big eyes. I love this quote from our guest, Diane Najm. Find out how she's building her beautiful business and how she's thriving her way through startup life. It's startup story time. Hello and welcome to Startup Stories. I'm your host, Ande Lyons, startup founder, coach, podcast host, and co-host of the popular monthly pitch event right here in beautiful Boston, USA. And with 4 businesses to my credit, I know from personal experience what you founders are going through. And I also know that hearing other founders' stories, startup stories, will help you feel less isolated, and you'll find a nugget or two to help you move your beautiful business forward. Our guest, Diane Najm, is the founder and CEO of PhotoPad, and she has a sensational startup story to share with you. After practicing social work for over 20 years, Diane leapt into the entrepreneurial world to launch 2 tech platforms in the photo and digital content marketing space. She launched her first product, PhotoPad, a consumer photo app on Facebook, in 2010. And then she launched PhotoPad for Business in 2016. Diane is passionate about empowering women to succeed in business and is constantly sharing the best advice, resources, and connections everywhere she glows. I met Diane years ago on Twitter, and we've been cheering each other on ever since. I'm so excited to share her startup story with you. Welcome to the show, Diane.
Thank you, Ande. It's been so great. And thank you for inviting me on the show. I'm really excited to share my story. It's quite a journey being an entrepreneur. And I want others to hear it and know that how long and how much work it takes.
You know, we're here to not glorify the entrepreneur journey, folks. We're here to tell the real stories, but also share that passion and the why that keeps us going, keeps someone like Diane going year after year with her business. So Diane, please share your startup story. Like, how did the idea come to you? Why did you launch this beautiful business?
Well, first off, I want to say happy National Entrepreneurship Day. This week is celebrating entrepreneurs, so this couldn't have been more perfect to be on your podcast and share the story. It's been quite a journey to leap from a social worker into the entrepreneurial world for sure. And it's been a wonderful journey. It makes sense because as a social worker, I like to work with people and I like to solve problems. So back in 2010, when everybody was moving off MySpace onto Facebook and photos became really, really popular, that's when I really looked at a problem I saw and that people were just posting photos. And I wanted to create a space where people can create stories and photo albums, share animated gestures, send e-cards to everybody around the world, because this was now become our living room. Right. And it made sense too, because I'm Greek and I like to share photos and albums and everything. So it was really a fun beginning, and it was for consumers, and I grew it to 250,000 users. But then I again forecasted as people were coming onto Facebook and it became ever so popular and photos were just inundated. At that time, it was 1.5 million photos uploaded. Now it's 2.8 billion photos uploaded. So I already was forecasting how in the world were businesses like myself going to stand out by sharing a photo, right? And everything is about relationships in life, whether it's work or it's business. And even more so as we've grown and evolved in this world of social sharing. So that's how then I decided to evolve and move it to the web for everyone to use, but our focus is for small businesses such as myself who don't have the resources or the budget to have a team or to even understand these complicated tools or to use multiple tools when we are doing everything in our business. So it was accidental jumping in it, but then again, somewhere down deep, it is my drive to always wanting to solve problems or seeing and assessing. So that to me makes total sense why I'm here today with you talking about the entrepreneurial journey.
Well, and I think too, as a social worker, coming into the tech space, I'd love to know, how did you handle the tech part? Because a lot of co-founders have to go out and find CTOs. They have to find a co-founder who might specialize in this. Some hop onto Upwork. Some go
Yes.
offshore to hire someone to create an app or work on their technology for them. How did you figure that out as a former social worker for PhotoPad?
Well, it's really interesting because when I first started in the whole industry, it was all men and me at events. So it's really cool to see that it's evolved into women now leading their companies, starting startups. So when it was very lonely in the beginning when I first entered events to try and find teams or co-founders or who I was interacting with, because it was a barrier to getting in. But I just kept pushing my way in and kept attending the events and building the relationships. But I did have a little bit of an advantage, was that my husband is a CTO and is an expert technical fellow with Microsoft. So that piece of him hiring the staff, the proper people that I needed to develop my original app, was fairly simple. But I still had to be out there and in the tech industry and speaking about my product to primarily men. So it was a barrier. But how I perceived it was like when I first worked the streets of Detroit, you have to build that relationship with the people on the streets, with the gang members, for them to respect you. And so it was the same process. I just pulled from my skills and just continued to move forward with it, even when I felt fear, right?
Right.
That's what you do as an entrepreneur.
Right.
You
And I love the fact that because you were out there flying solo as a female in an environment filled with tech, I mean, we're seeing much more women in tech here in Boston today, but they didn't even, and they were there 10 years ago for sure, but they weren't getting out. They weren't getting out and talking and building those important relationships. So I love how you're role modeling.
Yes.
So many
And
women.
no, go on, sorry.
And for women founders out there, what I'd love to know more about too is, how did you come up with your minimum viable product, and how has that grown and evolved over the years?
Well, interesting. When I first started PhotoPad, which was a scrapbooking app within Facebook, it grew in itself, because first we just started with these gestures, and then we started with the photo albums, and it moved into the email type postcards and e-cards, and then we gamified it. So I was always looking at bigger and better. Like my quote, we have big eyes and big ideas. I kept moving it forward in that way. But the thing was, as I grew it to 250,000 users and Instagram and Pinterest now came on, I saw everything populating, and I wanted to move outside of Facebook. And the important piece is that as a founder, you got to keep looking ahead. Where are you going? You can't be in your comfort zone. So I'm always pushing myself to look at what the trends are. What are we needing to forecast? And so what I then did was evolved or pivoted.
Yeah.
I always like looking at it like evolved, because I feel like we've grown from this little baby into where we're going. And how I started that whole next chapter of PhotoPad was through first starting with like a prototype of what does it look like. It's just sitting around the table and looking, but more importantly is doing customer validation. What do they want? Because I'll tell you, even though I did customer validation in the beginning, I was guilty of what every founder does. We know better than what our customers want, right? And my first version of PhotoPad is almost hysterical now when I look back, because it was all these bells and whistles. It looked like the Ferrari, everybody said, it looks like a Ferrari dashboard. You couldn't find anything. You don't even know where to put the key in. So it was really, I wanted it to be clean and simple, but the way I had designed it was clean and simple, but it wasn't simple to find the tools in it, because I had dashed everything away. So it was a lot of testing, a lot of going back to the drawing board, and then really listening to the customers of what they want to see. They want it out, they want it there, they want this on the right side, they want that on the left side, So we have changed the look and the feel as we continue to do in-person focus groups, user testing sites, paying some money to have people we don't even know test it out, give us feedback, which I think is so important. It's one of the best pieces of advice I was given early on, is to not only get focus groups together, but to use user testing sites who don't know you at all, have no interest in anything. And
they're not going to sugarcoat any of the feedback.
No.
And this
So
is so important that you, and even then, viewers, I really want you to take this in.
Yes.
What happens is you can do, and your customers through this process of proving your prototype, and this is what customers want, even then you can launch it and still get crickets sometimes.
Yes.
Even, and because they need to go to a deeper level and a deeper understanding of what you want. But still, how many companies do I know, do you know, Diane, that launched as product A, and by the time, a few years went by, they were product E or F, because there's plenty of letters in the alphabet to reach your destination, everybody. You don't have to stay stuck on plan A.
Yes, exactly. And it's very rare that people go out, very rare. I mean, you have one or two cases that you can say, oh, look what they did, or they immediately, the hockey stick. That is so rare. And so they're not a fair judge to look at. Plus, you have to stay in your own lane anyways, because your technology might be more complicated. It's not as simple. But yes, we've been through a lot of different stages. The piece of advice I give to startups all the time is, which I was guilty of, I had to be pushed off the diving board, is that nothing is perfect when you first go out. If you're not embarrassed, then you don't have a good product, and you're going to continue to be embarrassed until it becomes perfected. But being a perfectionist, which I think a lot of us are, we want it to be absolutely perfect. So we don't want to launch it, or we want to launch it looking absolutely perfect. And that's not the way it goes. So when somebody says to me like, oh, this is really not X, Y, and Z, I'm like, oh yes, I'm on the right track then. You know what I'm saying? Because it's not about the appearance right now. It's about the usability of it, and intuitive, and how simple it is.
Right. And the user experience. So Diane, you've been at this. So the PhotoPad for Business, you launched in 2016. Right now it is February 2020.
Yes.
You've had to, I don't want to say crawl, you have to keep yourself inspired year after year, month after month. Share with viewers how you've been able to do that. What have you drawn on? What do you use to help you stay excited and thrilled, even on those days? I'm always saying, one minute you're popping the champagne and the next you're crying into it.
Oh my gosh, yes. I don't know how many times I've popped that champagne, because every milestone, I think that's what's really important, is when you first start, everything is so big and so exciting. And then it becomes, you need to look at your milestones and your goals and your quarterly goals and what you hit. And if you pass those goals, those are things, it's constantly the carrot that keeps you going forward, I think. But first off, I do want to say it takes a lot longer to get to where you want to go than you really anticipated when you first started. And I always tell people that it takes a long time. And the second thing is, I always tell people not to look back, but the only time if you're going to look back is to look back how far you've come. So that's another source of inspiration. If I'm down in that trench that you just talked about, and that we're not popping the champagne, I have to remember, wow, look at where it was, look at where I am today, and what are my numbers, or take something positive that's happening in your product right now that keeps you moving forward.
And Diane, you know what I started doing recently is, not on Friday, although Friday might be a good time to do it. On Sundays, I've been capturing what were my wins last week.
Yes.
And using that to sort of juice me up for the following week.
Yes.
So much happens, founders, that you're going to forget what happened last week. You barely remember what happened a minute ago. There's just so much going on. There's so much evolution. And I think it's important to sort of track the wins, no matter how small they are. And especially after you've had to go through a tough disaster where you didn't think you'd ever find the solution, and boom, you figured it out. So Diane, how many reiterations, how many pivots have you had over these years?
Well, interesting. I remember at one point I was in a beta, and that was an alpha beta, and that was in a beta. And one of my mentors said, can you just get out of beta? And then it was Then we had the soft launch, and then we had the launch. And then he's like, can we stop with the launch now? And I love that about mentors. And you were saying another good way to get through, it takes time, is they have that mentor. I hope that you can build that relationship with you, have seen you come so far, that reminds you of these fun moments. And then just mentors along the way that bring a piece of something into you and your company that help you grow. So you have like serendipity mentors, you have mentors for a few months that help you do certain A to B. And those are all the things. I have so many around me, but my one keeps saying to me, like, are we in the public yet? Yes, I launched in 2019 to the public. And part of it is because I wanted it to be perfect. And one thing is, we did a survey last year, and that's another thing that really helps you. And it was perfect because there was two things. Was my goals of last year for my company was that we would be super simple and intuitive. And so we mastered that. And
Nice.
and we're now like, we're going to do another survey because we need to see, where do we need to go? I want to do some things. I want to release some pieces, but is it really what they want? And before we do all the work, we have it in prototype. Let me test it out. You always are testing, always validating, and you need to always be listening to your customers. So
that's excellent advice. And I thank you for sharing the laugh out loud moment. I love it when my guests bring the humor. Are we out of beta? Get out of beta. Are we still in launch? Launch.
Yes.
So good.
And I was reading somebody else's story too about that. Like, I'm like, they're still in beta. It's 3 years later. And it's like, well, sometimes it does take that long because you want it to not only be perfect, but you need to listen to your customers. So
right.
Testing.
Well,
when it's technology, especially.
Right. So what I'd love to dive into now is how does PhotoPad work? So that folks who are tuning in get a good idea of what happens when you on board and how can you use it, especially for those small business owners that we love and adore.
And what's so great is what we've learned is, just like myself, like I mentioned, we can't afford a team, a set of designers. And what you have to do now is just upload your photos, and we have all the tools in one place. So you don't have to worry about, what am I going to do? Or I have to go over to X, Y, and Z to edit, go over here to filter it. We have everything in one space. So that's what makes us super simple and easy to use. And the biggest point today is about building relationships, sharing your customer experience. That's what PhotoPad does for small businesses.
And so give us an example of a customer who has had success with PhotoPad.
Well, I have several people that I really love the stories they shared, and that is the stories behind their products or what they do to bring their products. Like there's JJ Caprizi, Jen Jetta, who has traveled the world, and she curates jewelry from women in third world countries and then hosts them on her e-commerce. So she has shared multiple stories of how her travels and who the people are behind the jewelry. And I think that's so important to sharing, right?
Wow. So you can upload multiple photos and turn it into a brand story.
Yes. And I mean, you can do multiple things with PhotoPad. You can either do a graphic, you can do a photo story, you can make your photo blog. But the most important thing today is, in addition, I should say, to building relationships, it's the string of text that tied together to tell a story is no longer effective. It's about the visuals. So really our core value of what we want PhotoPad to help and serve to our small businesses is that photo story, and to be able to share it on multiple platforms with a click. So that if they want to be on one site because they're overwhelmed, they're still present on other sites. It's a matter of seconds to create, matters of seconds to go back and look at it and see if there's anybody you need to interact, rather than what am I going to do on those. The second thing is, you can change up one photo story that you've created by just changing it. Can be totally customized, and you can edit it, and you can delete a picture, add a picture, whatever. So you don't have to keep recreating, which people are spending so much time today.
Listen.
You don't have time for that.
So I'm always laughing, viewers, about how I should never go onto Canva. 2 hours later, and I finally have my thumbnail for something.
Yeah.
So bad. Anything you see on this on this video today, I mean, I'm not saying that took hours, but if I had that, fortunately, I already have a boilerplate. I just have to change the text out. But
Yes.
if I had to come up with any sense of design, forget it. I would be insulting kindergartners if I said they could do a better job than I do. So,
Yeah.
so that leads me to how is it? How is PhotoPad different than something like a Canva or a PicMonkey?
Well, very good, because where we fit in and the gap is they're good in their own rights. I mean, you have Canva if you want to create your brand logo, if you want to create your invitations, if you want to create your brand elements, basically. We don't do that. What we do is take those brand elements and create your content that is present on social media that gets increased engagement and a greater ROI. And the same thing with PicMonkey. It's an editing tool. We have editing tools in our platform. So they're great on their own, but what we hope to do is be able to save you time and money because we have everything in one place. And Canva is wonderful, and I feel like they're almost like a sister to us because they create your elements, you upload them, we create your content. So on the content scale of things, that's where we are.
So
That's how we
I love that
coincide
because
together.
yeah, think of a typical small business, somebody, whether it's a local cafe who wants to share stories, or the salon, or a business that's marketing a product and they want more people to get involved, but they want to see what the team is going through and things like that. They can easily upload. And again, we don't have these teams. We're usually
Right.
the founder of a small business is wearing 20 different tiaras, and she does not have the time to constantly be thinking about, oh my gosh, I got to get this on Instagram, or I've got to do, one more thing here. I think that's the beauty of PhotoPad, is that you can take your shots, upload them, give them that polished look, give them that branded look. They tell a story, and you're in and out. And then isn't there some kind of share button so that you don't have to go and upload to everybody yourself?
Oh, and you just share it out, right? Like I mentioned, you publish it with one click to all your social media channels, and it gives you time then because everybody wants to be on Instagram. So this gives you that space to be in the moment, because that's what Instagram is, in the moment, but
Right.
you long live with PhotoPad in your other social media channels. In addition, I have one client, Christina Brennan, who is a communications consultant, and she loves Instagram and Instagram stories. But what she does is she saves her day of Instagram stories, creates a PhotoPad story, shares them to the other social media channels because she's not really on them, but she knows she needs to be present. That's another great example.
Wow.
One of our favorite customers who has created multiple photo stories.
See, that's a great example. You have one platform you love, everybody knows you're on there, and some of the other platforms may feel like my friend Blair says, Melba toast, so dry and not you, but you need to have a presence there. Your brand must be showing up. What a great idea. I love that, Diane.
And what else is, I wanted to tell you, is not only like Melba toast, with everything streaming and algorithms moving in on social media, with photo stories, they stand out. They get increased engagement, between 83 to 92% we're seeing. And, a static photo not only streams through, but a 3 to 6% chance of standing out. So it's very low. So if you're going to stream, you're not going to be there. Photo stories, really sharing a story about your brand, about your business, inviting them in. Rebecca West, she's an interior decorator. She's done multiple stories about come into my office. And she's super fun, super talented. If you look at what she's created, it's cool. She's also done before and after to give you a flair of what she does.
Nice.
So it lives on. So if you want inspiration, you can look at our feature page, which we feature small businesses too. So it's a nice little PR piece we add for people. We'll share your story on our feature page.
I love that, Diane. So you've been on this journey for a while. You leapt into the entrepreneurial world about 10 years ago. And you were already pretty self-aware as a social worker. I mean, my goodness, that's another journey that helps you dig into who you are in order to be there for others.
Right.
What has the entrepreneurial journey done for you to enhance your life, both personally and professionally?
Well, interesting. I just have been reflecting on that because I thought as a social worker, you push yourself. I mean, there is a lot of fear. You're working on the streets, you're working with people who, like I mentioned to you, drug abusers, gang members, and you're building a relationship and you're building respect. And, one of my passions is advocating for women. So I worked with a lot of women, trying to help them, give them resources, help them be successful. And in the entrepreneurial world, I think it pushed me even further to become a leader, to push myself in uncomfortable positions. I mean, I don't know, sometimes I feel like it's different when I was on the street to entering a whole 100 people, all being men in business suits, and to be pitching before investors. I mean, to me, it's totally different than when I used to stand in front of the judge and present a case, and I remember I felt nervous back then, but I feel like this has pushed me to another level of confidence. I think I built more inner confidence than I've ever had, because I have to work alone. I have to lead alone. I have to lead a tech team, which is not in my arena, right? And I had to learn and grow and build culture different than I did when I was a director of social work.
I'm always saying that, we hang out so much outside our comfort zone. Every time I see a meme about growing outside your comfort zone, I'm like, hey, I would love to have some comfort zone time.
Yes, I know, that's true. I know, but my new thing is I've been waking up every morning. I got to do one more thing that pushes me, because it's so easy, especially as I'm moving forward, as a startup moves forward to every next phase. Like, we have been in this phase, it's time to move to the next one. It's time to get funding. What does that look like? And, my stomach, it turns, and it's like, okay, now I know. So every day I've been waking up. My new goal is waking up and pushing myself, whether it's in fitness, it's one more rep or one more level higher, or it's going
oh my gosh,
one more investor pitch.
Diane, you have the ideal ingredients to be a founder.
Thank you.
Now that is amazing. And viewers, you founders that are watching, do you think back when you first launched your business and all the things that were like, that you were going through, that now you're like, oh yeah, I got that. But now you've got this other new,
you constantly are going through that. If you're not, I think you need to look at it. And I think when I kept moving forward, I start looking for people to get hear their story, higher level, every level I've been at. And I was just thinking, who can I reach out to that's super successful, because I want to hear their story of where I am, because those are the stories that have kept me going throughout. I've heard from, so many high level CEOs who have been very successful, their early stories, or how they almost lost their company. Many of them shared such great detail that those stories stay inside me, and know that I have to keep going. So that's another thing, going back a little bit to inspiration. That's what keeps me going, the passion. Besides having it internally, I think as a startup founder, if you quit, you just really didn't have the total passion. You have to keep going.
Right. And
something of course drives you inside.
Yeah. And of course, I talk a lot about strategic quitting, because sometimes you've learned what you needed to learn from that business, and it's time to move on.
Right.
Your talents and your energy need to go somewhere else. But that's a conversation that you have to have with yourself, with your team, with folks, because sometimes you can't beat a dead horse. And also, that's a terrible analogy. But I always think about what Damon John says on Shark Tank, which is, I'm investing in him or her, but if this business doesn't work out, I'm going to be there for the next one, because they'll figure it out. So a lot of times it's having that passion of wanting to solve a problem, to create value, to bring something to the world that's unique, that you are uniquely qualified to do, and it leaves you feeling fully expressed. And sometimes you learn as much as you can with one business, and then you go to a next one, or you're able to stay with that one business until you and it evolve into, ta-da, the outcome that you've always wanted. So Diane, you have been so helpful in empowering women. I just love it. Diane lives in Seattle, everyone. You've got to follow her on Twitter, wherever she goes, Facebook, Instagram. But she's always out there supporting women, not just locally in her zip code, but around the world.
Yes.
Share with viewers why that's so important to you.
Well, it's always been important. Like I mentioned, I was a social worker, and I worked with women who grew up in very battered dysfunctional families, and I wanted to give them an opportunity. I was pretty fortunate in life, not that we were rich or anything, but pretty fortunate to have good role models, people that helped me move forward in my life. And I don't know why, I always wanted to give back that feeling. And then it became more and more important to help women, because as I entered the tech world, I saw the barriers, and they're not easy. If you don't have what I have, or that drive, you need help breaking in, and the more powerful we are together. So help lifting as you climb is what they say, to me is just really important. And I've always had a passion for women to help them. And I've been involved in a number of organizations, from even startup weekends for Girlpreneur, which was super fun, is really exposing girls early on that they can be leaders, that they can, and pushing them and showing them that competitive and having them bring it out. Both years I did that. First year was second place. For the following year, we've got first place. It's just pushing them and saying, yes, you can do it, and giving them that feeling, and then saying to them, now that feeling, you can move forward with it. Whatever you do, always aim for that great feeling. And then I love helping early stage startups, because it's difficult in the beginning and you need support. And so many women now are coming out. I just love that. So I really am on that scene too. And like you said, from around the world, if you want help, I'm always willing to give some time to offer up what I can. And I love that.
I'm going to have all of Diane's contact info in the show notes, everybody. Here's the biggest challenge that many founders have, which is reaching out and asking for help. You have to get comfortable doing that. That's key to growing your business. There's no shame involved, but it's a lot easier when it's someone like Diane, who you can feel really safe with, because she's been there, she's walked it, and she understands what you're going through. Right, Diane?
Yes, it's a safe place to describe your fears, because we can't tell the whole world that. You can't be, to even some mentors, you have to be careful,
Right.
But as women, we can share that and we can help guide that. So it's so important. And then too, I was with Young Professional Network, where I was a keynote speaker and mentor for many years for Women Leadership Month. And that was so important to me also, because I could reach a larger audience of women and inspire them to aim for that high level C-suite, to make those career changes, not be comfortable where they are, unless that's where you want to be. That's great,
Absolutely.
Do come because they know they want to change. They just don't know how to. So I love being out there and hoping to inspire them and offering up whatever I can and what I experience for them to move forward.
Do we not love Diane?
Oh,
I'm telling you.
I love it too. I love
so wonderful.
People.
Diane, how can we add some wind to your sail, open some doors for you, share what we can do to help you with your business? I know you've had a contest going on.
Yes.
What can we do? Go ahead. Shameless plug time.
All right. Well, I would love any introductions to small businesses who want help with their social media marketing. We are a tool that makes it super simple. And anybody that gets involved, I will feature you in our newsletter, across our social media channels multiple times. So it's not just a one-off and nobody saw it. We're going to make sure that you stand out. I think, I'm looking for mom and pop coffee shops, wineries, retail space, would be wonderful introductions. So that would be great. Yay. And you guys can email me at diane@photopad.co.
And then LinkedIn, you can find her there too.
LinkedIn, Diane Najm, and I love LinkedIn. It's been a great resource. If you're not on LinkedIn and you're not sharing your stories there, you need to be, because I get a lot of connections and contacts there that have been very quality and worth my time. It's been wonderful. And also Instagram. Come over to Instagram. I love sharing my Insta stories and my whatever tips I have about getting your business in the spotlight.
Oh my gosh.
This is wonderful.
Oh, this is, viewers know how much I love talking to other founders, hearing their stories, so that we can all grow and learn from what they've been going through. And I am so grateful that you shared your startup stories today. And viewers, thank you for tuning into Startup Story Time. I'm genuinely grateful for your time and your commitment to your startup. I'm confident you learned something today to make your startup journey easier. And if you have any questions for Diane or for me, or you would like to continue the conversation, pop a comment below right here on YouTube or shoot us an email. All of that information are in the show notes. We'll be happy to follow up with you and add wind to your sail and follow you and what you're doing with your business or connecting with you, whatever you need. And if you have a startup story you'd like me to share on the Startup Story Time right here on video, please reach out to me via email, Ande@andelyons.com. And to receive an alert whenever I post a new video, click the subscribe button and click the bell so that you get notified whenever I pop up a new video. And I'd love it if you subscribed to my monthly newsletter, Let's Stick Together, because gosh, it takes a village to raise a business. And I'm always sending out, it's just monthly, some great advice, my podcast, videos like this to keep you moving forward and energized and excited. Do you need a pitch deck reviewed? I've raised millions from VCs, thousands from angels, and I'm a co-host of a popular pitch event here in Boston, so I can make sure your deck is ready for investors or your next pitch event. And if your business is suffering from a variety of ailments, call me. Get an urgent care for startup founders coaching session. You can schedule a call with me by the minute, and I'll help you restore your business and your state of mind to a healthy condition. All the links are in the show notes, and be sure to use Startup Life. That's the discount code that will get you 25% off on all my services. Diane, thank you so much for joining me and sharing your startup story today.
Thank you, Ande. It's super fun. Thank you.
Good. And viewers, until next time, I want you to stay strong, stay focused, and remember, you've got this. Bye. Mwah, mwah, mwah.